What's up, folks? Today I'm going to be doing another upgrade on my 2015 Street Glide Special. I want to be changing out the exhaust. Currently I have Cobra True Duals on there now, and I'm going to switch them up to Khrome Werks 2-in-2 exhaust. Now I've already got the heat shields off, and I'll show that to you now. It's just some hose clamps. It's just as simple as taking a flathead screwdriver and unscrewing those. So pretty simple. And then the other thing I've already done is went ahead and took my floorboard off on the right side. It's just 2 bolts. It is a 5/16 Allen, so pretty quick and easy uninstall. And obviously got to take off the saddlebags, and you need to take off the right side panel to get to the O2 sensors. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you the rest. Okay, like I said before, the heat shields are off. You have a hanging bracket on each side for the muffler slip-on. There's also a clamp down here that I've also loosened. These are 1/2-inch bolts. Now you just need to kind of twist this a little bit to get it off. And there you have it. Here's the clamp I was talking about. And you do the same thing on the other side. So I won't show you the other side. It's the same process. So my next step is to get the O2 sensors unplugged. You'll see them right here underneath the ABS. White is front, back is black. Just remember, back in black. We all know what that is. But there's some zip ties holding it together. You need to be able to reroute these out, so once you take off the headers, it comes with it. There's a zip tie right here. That will allow you to loosen these. There's the front, there's the back, and you can reroute these around here. And there's one more zip tie, so there's only 2 zip ties. There you go. And those are free. There's a bracket here right under the transmission that keeps the front header in place. I've already taken the bolt out. It is a 1/2-inch. Next, there's exhaust flanges up here, and they are 1/2-inch as well, bolts. So I'll go ahead and take those out. And you'll do the same for the front. Now there's a crossover bracket here. This is a 1/2-inch nut. Once I loosen this, I should be able to take the headers off. Now, as you can see, I was able to easily take off the headers. Here's the flange I was talking about. We'll talk more about that. Now I'm going to take the O2 sensors off the old exhaust headers, and I'm using a 14mm socket. Okay, now I need to take off the flanges and the circlip, but first I got to take these off in order to get the flanges off. So I'm using needle nose pliers to get it over the lip, and I've pulled it up some. Just going to pull it back over. And same thing for the other one. Kind of twist it a little bit. Just get it over the lip. And save these for the new exhaust. Now you can pull the flanges off. And one other thing, notice that these circlips seat into the flanges. It's a good time to clean these up, clean some of the rust off of it. I'll take care of that. Okay, here's the new Khrome Werks exhaust. I'm going to put my flange on both sides. And got to put my circlip on. I'm sure this will be a little tricky. Actually, you don't need the needle nose. That'll work. You can just pull it back. There we go. Make sure that circlip seats in there well. Sure does. All right, next I need to put in the O2 sensors. You'll notice that there's 4 holes here. You have an 18 millimeter on each side, and then you have 12 millimeter. 18 millimeter is typically like an aftermarket O2 sensor, but what I'll do is I'll plug that in. This came with the purchase. A lot of times what you'll see is these 18 millimeters, and an adapter comes with it to convert it to 12 millimeter, but a lot of companies are going with another set of holes for your O2 sensors. So you have a little crush washer that come with it. So I'll go ahead and get those started. All right, now I'm gonna install the O2 sensors. While it goes on the front, I put a little anti-seize grease on the threads. And just snug that down tight. Again, 14 millimeter. Now for the black, I don't know how well you can see that, but in the exhaust port, there's a gasket, and I started taking it out with a pick, and Khome Werks sends you one with the exhaust. You can see that there's like a tethered end right here, and then more of a squared flushed end. This end would go in. Now I've never replaced one of these, but since I'm putting in new exhaust, and the old exhaust has been on there for over 50,000 miles, I figured why not? So imagine there's about a 50-50 chance to get this right without messing it up. So we'll see how I do. So here's the old one. You can see how you can mess it up pretty well. Well, obviously I used a pick, but this was the back end, like I was saying, and the more tethered end sticks outward away from the motor. And you can see how the old exhaust just kind of set down in there. It kind of married to it, that indention. Well, I want the new exhaust, which is probably a little bit different, to get a good seal to make that indention once it's tightened up with the bolts and the flanges. All right, as you can see, I installed the new exhaust port gasket, and I used a tool, man-made tool I should say. I got this off a fellow YouTuber, Tony Cox. I didn't use all the washers he did. I'll leave a link in the description of the video, and you can go check out the video. But yeah, I didn't use all the washers he did, but I was able to put the tethered end on around this washer and just evenly push it in on both sides. Now the front one is a lot harder, but just a little patience. I tapped it in with a mallet and it worked just fine, no issues. All right, next I gotta replace this bracket from the old Cobra exhaust with a new L bracket. And so I'm gonna be reusing these bolts. This is a 1/4 inch Allen socket. I've added some blue Loctite to the bolts. This is 22 to 25 foot-pounds. All right, as you can see, I got the headers on. I started with the front and just loosely screwing in the 1/2 inch nuts, and then you kind of got to pull back and wiggle a little bit to get the rear in, and then loosely put those 1/2 inch nuts in as well. There's a P bracket here in which I got to put this bolt into, and then screw a nut into it. As you can see, it's got a little squared off end. So I have to somehow pinch that in order to get it together. I'm gonna try a pair of needle nose pliers just to get a closer look. As you can see there. Okay, now I'm gonna tighten up the 1/2 inch flange nuts evenly. Don't do one more than the other, just kind of turn evenly across. I'm gonna just do it by hand at first for the back and the front. And the torque specs on that is a 100 to 120 inch-pounds. Okay, now that I got the headers tightened up, I need to tighten up the P-clamp. That is a 15 millimeter nut, and it is 22 to 25 foot-pounds. So now I'm gonna go ahead and connect up the O2 sensors, and I'm gonna run it along the frame here, just like it was previously, and send it back through. So black to black, white to white, pretty simple. Listen for the click. And then of course zip tie that up. Now I'm gonna put the crossover pipe on. You'll notice there is a P bracket here to help hold the crossover pipe on. So there'll be two factory 3/16 Allen bolts that you'll reuse, and then there's a pinch bolt here to help pinch this P-clamp, and you got to use the supplied AccuSeal Clamp, which will go on here. Make sure that the bolt's facing out so you can bolt it down, and the slotted end goes into the front header. I already know this is going to be a pain. All right, now I'm gonna start setting up the heat shields by inserting these hose clamps. Now you can put these on before you put on the slip-ons, or you can put them on after. It's really your choice. Instructions for these say to put your slip-ons on first and then these. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these ready. All right, folks, now it's time to put on the muffler. And as you can see, I got another one of the AccuSeal clamps. Should just be able to slide it over the crossover pipe. Just make sure that the nut is accessible. So torque spec on the hanging bracket here is 14 to 18 foot-pounds. Also, I want to mention, as I was putting this on, this plate here, this bracket plate will slide back and forth. That'll help you to install the muffler. As you can see, I got the heat shield on the crossover pipe. Now all I have to do is tighten up the P-clamp. That is 38 to 43 foot-pounds for torque spec. And just make sure I got all my hose clamps tightened up. You don't want to tighten those too tight, they could snap. So be careful in doing that. All right, time to put the footboard back on. Add a little blue Loctite. This is a 5/16 Allen. Start with the shorter bolt, which is on the back end, and slide in the longer bolt. That should help hold it in place. And the backing nut. This is also 36 to 42 foot-pounds for torque spec. Make sure before you start up the bike that you clean off the heat shields. Make sure there's no fingerprints. Some people use Windex. I'm using a little bit of bug slide. All right, folks, that's a wrap. That is the install of the Khrome Werks Dominator 2-in-2 exhaust. And you will have to tune your bike again, changing out the headers and everything. So I do have to do that. Stay tuned. I'll give you like a before and after of the Cobra True Duals and the Khrome Werks. I can tell you right now that sound is deeper and louder, and the video is not going to do it justice. I can't wait to get her on the road to see how loud she'll get. Y'all, appreciate you watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and always rip the ride. See ya.